Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the newest RFP opportunity for Trellis Foundation. My name is Kristen Boyer, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Foundation. And I just want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to join us today to learn more about the RFP opportunity and to have the chance to ask questions that may help you in preparing a competitive application for this process. For the webinar today, we will do a brief overview of the foundation for anyone who's not familiar with our work and our priorities. And then I will turn it over to my colleagues for the remainder to talk about the specific RFP objectives and process, and then we will finish with the Q&A. I would say it's fine to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and click on that to submit your questions throughout the webinar, but we'll also leave plenty of time at the end to get those submitted and answered at that point. And just a quick word of introduction about the foundation staff who are here behind the scenes, working to both get the webinar delivered and then also will be involved in the review of applications and are just essential to all of the work that the foundation is doing. First is Jenny Achilles, who is our Senior Director and Chief Program Officer, and she'll be doing the bulk of the context for the RFP. Megan Beadle is our Grants Administrator, and she'll be talking about the specific process for submitting the application. And then finally, DNA Leal is the newest member of our team. She's joined us as the Program Officer of Knowledge Sharing, and she is helping us monitor the Q&A in the chat today, and also just available to provide insight and guidance to folks, and will be involved in a lot of the back end collecting information, data, and results and impact for all of our programs going forward. So just as a way of introduction, the Trellis Foundation has been in existence as an independent entity since 2017. And just within the last couple of years, we've gone through a strategic planning process, and this is the mission statement that we're operating under. You'll notice that sort of three components to this mission statement. One is a focus on equitable opportunities in Texas for educational attainment. And in particular, we're looking at post-secondary success, but that cuts across program level practices and systems across all of our philanthropic giving. And then we are very conscious of the disparities in outcomes that we currently see based on race, ethnicity, gender, and income. And those are very much driving factors in the work that we want to undertake and support. In the strategic framework that we've established, we do have three specific pillars that we look at. The first is holistic student supports, and acknowledging that academic success is not the only factor that determines whether a student completes higher education, that there are wraparound supports that have become essential and critical to student success. The second pillar is looking at streamlined pathways and ensuring that there is an obvious progression for students, a starting point and a clear finish line that leads to living wages and economic mobility for all students. And then finally, we do have a pillar on reconnection for returning learners, especially for those students who either have stopped out or dropped out, making sure that there is an on-ramp for them to return, and just an acknowledgement that lifelong learning is becoming more critical, more essential as folks take advantage of workforce opportunities to advance their careers. So for this RFP in particular, we are looking at the holistic student support. We consider mental health and well-being one of those essential components for student success broadly. And so that's where we place this RFP. On the next slide, you'll see the various approaches that the foundation takes to carry out the strategy. And I would argue that some of this RFP may cross a couple of these categories, but primarily we consider this an RFP opportunity that focuses on localized or regional direct impact that affects students. So we are aiming to see individual student impact or individual institution or community impact. There may be some of the applications that come in that are looking more toward the scaling or providing a rationale or justification for scaling something that already exists or expanding usage of things that exist currently. So there may be a little flexibility in that, but primarily we're looking at the localized direct impact. And then just a quick word about the convening and catalyzing collaboration. This RFP definitely also looks at collaboration as essential to the success of any effort to improve student mental well-being and mental health. So there are some elements there as well. And then finally, we said a little bit in the mission statement, but just acknowledging that the foundation does use an equity framework around the efforts that we want to support. And Jenny will talk a little bit more about how this plays out in this specific RFP, but it's definitely a component that we would encourage applicants to focus on and be able to reflect in the proposals that are submitted. So I think with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Jenny, to continue with the details of this RFP.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it. And good afternoon to all of you. As Kristen said, thank you for joining us today. As she mentioned, I'm going to share the details of our mental health and well-being request for proposals, which we have structured as a learning cohort. So with this RFP, we're acknowledging the heightened concerns over students' mental health and well-being, the effects that has on student educational outcomes, and then also the intersection between basic needs and mental well-being. We are utilizing a learning cohort model, and we're centering it in common technical assistance providers. The goals for our cohorts are to increase understanding by staff and faculty at institutions and then staff at nonprofits of the student mental health and well-being needs at their organization, with a focus on specific student populations, so specific racial and ethnic groups, etc. We're also looking to have better student outcomes, an uptake of services, and then increase student metrics down the line. And then finally, our goal is differentiation of student mental health and well-being services for specific student populations. So again, such as by race and ethnicity and other populations as needed for your organization. Eligibility. I know I've already gotten questions in from those of you as you were registering for today, a lot of interest around eligibility. So first, as a reminder, Trellis Foundation is a statewide funder in Texas. So the location you must serve students attending Texas colleges and universities. So if you're an institution of higher education, you must be located in Texas. If you're a nonprofit applicant, it is possible there may be a national office outside of Texas, but the students served in this proposal must be in Texas. Eligible entities include public and nonprofit institutions of higher education, and then college retention community-based organizations, either alone or in partnership with other entities. So we know that colleges or CBOs may be partnering with additional colleagues, such as a community health clinic, etc. But we really are asking for the applying entity to be focused on college access and success. So the nonprofit applicant would need to be a college access and success coach or other type of organization, but you can then be working with other partners that don't fit that particular description. Ineligible organizations would be ISDs or K-12 serving organizations. That includes dual enrollment. So the K-12 side would not be eligible for this RFP. If you're a community college, the community college could include dual enrollment students in what they're serving. But again, that's on the community college side. A K-12 entity would not be eligible. Also, institutions of higher education located outside of Texas will not be eligible for this RFP. Individual students are not eligible, and neither are for-profit institutions. So the Grantee learning cohort model that we'll be using for this means that every selected applicant will participate in a learning community. It's an expectation for involvement in this RFP, and they'll have the opportunity to receive technical assistance during the grant period. The cohort is going to be led by an intermediary organization and who will have that background in Texas regional mental health ecosystems, and they'll be able to support the learning cohort, convene the group, provide expert guidance to grantees, and can also advise grantees and connect them to that menu of technical assistance providers that is listed in the appendix for the RFP document. So to go over them, the lead organization will be the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute. They'll lead that cohort, and they'll be providing help and assistance and guidance and connections and referrals to regional mental health ecosystems in your regions. We are also going to be working with Active Minds, the JED Foundation, and the Steve Fund. So the review process, we are providing our general scoring rubric for transparency. I'll go over these. Scores will be assigned on a 1 to 10 scale by the review committee. And this is included in that RFP document, so you can go back to it. This is spelled out in there, but we're going to walk through it here. So it's important for us that the proposal shows that mental well-being has a clear role within your organization's plans and priorities. So do you have the long-term buy-in of organizational leadership? Is there a plan in place that helps assure that this isn't a one-off 2022 only initiative, but this is building an infrastructure and supports for going forward? Second, do you have a strategy for addressing the basic needs of students? So as we've mentioned in that RFP document, we understand the interconnectedness of basic needs on mental health and vice versa. There's that strong interplay. And so these grant dollars are not for establishing basic needs supports, but it's going to be important to show in your proposal how your organization is already addressing basic needs and how you're situating this within that broader context of support for students. The next two questions are how well do you understand the needs of your students? It's okay if it's limited right now, but we want you to address that in the proposal, exactly where you're at. And if it's limited, then go ahead and include in the proposal how you'll be addressing, really understanding your students' needs. And then as number 4 said, really understanding the needs of students of color specifically. So as it says in question 5, does the plan account for diverse student body? So share with us the demographics of your students and how are you addressing all of the different types of needs that you're going to find with your students. Number 6, do the objectives reflect the foundation's goals, which we went over in a couple of slides ago? And are the proposed tracking measures sufficient and feasible? Number 7, can the applicant benefit from this learning community and technical assistance? So we know that the amount of funds and the number of awards that we're giving in this particular cohort is not going to meet the need of all of the organizations in the state of Texas, right? So we are specifically looking to find applicants who will benefit from what we are able to provide. There's very specific technical assistance providers that we're going to be working with. And so we'll be looking for that cohort, that learning community that can benefit from each other and from those specific providers. Number 8, does the applicant leverage partnerships with the community to encourage collaboration and increased impact? We'll be looking for that. And then finally, again, we're a statewide funder. So does this applicant contribute to the geographic diversity of the learning community? So for example, we will not be selecting all of the applicants from a single region. Because of that, it's important to understand that if there are multiple applications from a single region, you're competing not just against everyone else, but also against each other in a very different way, because there's a maximum of one per region that can end up being selected. So you're decreasing the likelihood of award for any one within that region. So for example, so we would encourage you to partner together and to submit a single application, again, just so you're not competing against each other. So that would be our recommendation. So for example, if there's 4 college access CBOs, and they each submit an application, they're all competing against each other. Whereas if they submit an application together, thinking through how they can benefit from these supports as a region, then they would not be competing, and it would be a stronger application from that standpoint. So this can be a lot to think through. So we are providing a sample proposal, and I'm sure there'll be additional questions that come up around this. But so for example, let's say in region, in the lovely region of the great state of Texas that's proposing, you have CBO X, CBO Y, and College Z. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about these entities. So in 2022, all 3 organizations have a priority for identifying and implementing mental well-being supports. The organizations have already identified that, and then this RFP came up, and so it was a great fit. Now within these 3, neither CBO has any supports in place yet. It's a priority, but there's nothing in place. College Z has a food pantry, an emergency aid program, and a social worker, but no contacts with mental health providers as of yet. So the 3 of them are coming together. Each organization has recently surveyed their students on their mental health needs, and they've identified some key concerns, but the information was not disaggregated by race or ethnicity. So in their proposal, they're including a request for assistance and better understanding specific population needs. So their proposal specifically, this entity or this region is looking to identify and collaborate key contacts at the CBOs, the college, and their local mental health provider for seamless referrals and resource sharing. So they've identified that as one really important step for their particular proposal. They looked through the menu of technical assistance options that were in the appendix, and they've decided that workshops that are going to help the staff at all 3 organizations provide guidance to resources is going to be key. So they've identified a couple of key workshops that they think are going to be a good fit for them. The college looked through and decided that the 18-month equity and mental health program through the Steve Fund is actually a really good fit for them, and they're willing as an organization to commit to that 18-month program. And that is a TA option that's included in the RFP. And then finally, the CBOs have identified some need for marketing consulting. And so they see that Active Minds can help them with that, and they've put that down as something that they would like to do to develop email campaigns for students as part of the process. Very simplified proposal, but just wanted to kind of throw out some examples of how this could play out as you're putting together your proposal. So finally, we anticipate awarding 5 to 10 grants. So that's why I was talking about that regional collaboration, because it really is just 5 to 10 throughout the state. And award amounts should, when you propose them, they should not exceed $200,000 each. That doesn't include the technical assistance request. We do have some funds for the technical assistance aside from that, but your proposal shouldn't exceed $200,000 each. And so with that, I believe I'll be passing it over to my colleague, Megan, to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Jenny. As Jenny mentioned, my name is Megan Beadle, and I am the grants administrator for Trellis Foundation. And I just wanted to walk you through the application process a little bit. And feel free, if you have any issues with the application later on, to email us at info@trellisfoundation.org, and we'll be happy to work through any specific issues you may have. So the application can only be accessed through the link in the RFP document. That's both on our website, and Kristen has added a link in the chat box for that. So make sure you are using that link to access our grant management system giving data. When you click on that link, you're going to see a screen that says Trellis Foundation Mental Health RFP, and it will either give you the option to sign in or create an account. And something that we have noticed in general grant making that we need to point out is that if you use giving data to request funds from any funder who uses giving data, your login information will be the same for all of those. So if you applied for funding from Greater Texas Foundation and you have a giving data login, that login will be the same. It won't let you create a new account or anything like that. We've run into some of those issues, so just something to be aware of in that process. We also provide a Word document version of the application in the RFP document, so you can look at that ahead of actually getting into the application. The application itself contains multiple sections for contact information, general organization information, and all of that can be navigated on the right-hand side of the application. Everything must be completed in order for you to submit that application, but you can save and come back later. We do have two upload requirements that we require you to use our template for, and one of those is the application narrative. Instead of general project information going into separate fields, we actually have created a Word document where you would go in, enter all of your program information. That would be program descriptions, goals, things like that. All of those go into a Word document and are then uploaded into Giving Data. We also request that you provide a project budget. That budget document is also provided in the application for you to complete. And in that document, we ask for you to outline the total project budget, which includes both funds requested from Trellis Foundation and other funds that go toward that program. So we want to see the project in total. And we also provide an optional upload field for MOUs and letters of support. This section, while optional, will be really important for those applications that are coming in from multiple organizations that are working together for one request. And again, all of the required fields have to be completed in order for you to submit an application. You'll get an error if you aren't doing something. Again, if you run into any questions, info@trellisfoundation.org, and we'll be happy to work with you for that. And then the application, some budget considerations for the application and that budget template that we provide. Again, we're requesting that you break down funds for Trellis Foundation and other funders for that project. We want to see what % we are of the total project cost. We allow up to 10% of the total request amount to be applied toward indirect costs. And we ask that for line items for ongoing costs. So let's say you want to add a staff member or paid internships or something that's going to continue past the end of our grant. We're going to want to see some sort of sustainability plan for those line items as part of your application. So we don't want to see you come in and ask for all of these new line items that you don't currently have and don't have a plan to sustain. So just be cognizant that when you're filling out this application and the budget template, that we do want to know that, you know, after our 2 years is over, what are you going to do for year 3 and year 4 to sustain that program? So that's going to be a really important part of that application process. We do have some line items that we will not cover. Just they're simply excluded from our ability to cover. Those are annual fundraising events, performances and competitions, motor vehicles, endowments, things like that. And there's a full list right there for you guys to look at. So just make sure you're not requesting anything for that. And just make sure that you're paying attention to those line item requests. The timeline for step 1 of the process, which is what we are currently in, we are accepting those proposals through 5 p.m. on March 30th. And after that, the staff will review those and we will let you know one way or the other, whether you're going to continue to step 2 or we're not going to be able to fund you this time. We'll know that by April 15th, around that time. Step 2 responses will be due May 6th for applicants that have been selected to continue on in the process, and we can give more information about what is required for that later on. And final board approval will occur in June with notifications after that. And I think we're going back to Jenny now for FAQs.
Thank you, Megan. Just a couple clarification points. I wanted to be sure y'all realize that when Megan was talking about uploading a Word doc, those questions, those fields are the exact same application that is in that PDF of the RFP template of the RFP. So you've got all those questions in front of you already. So even though you can't see the online application, it's exactly what you've got in that document. There's no extra surprises in there. And then we also did want to encourage you, if you have ongoing costs that you're including in the proposal, we understand that funders are often like, you have to have a sustainability plan for ongoing costs. It's magic, just figure it out, right? Like, you don't have the funding for it now, but 2 years from now, you magically will. Show us how that's gonna happen. So we did wanna say that we understand that there are things you can be doing now that may help set you up to be able to institutionalize those costs going forward. So if there are ROI assessments or other types of evaluation that your organization would need to see, like the information and data that would help your organization make a decision to continue with those staff positions, feel free to include in as a line item anything that would help support that. So if there are costs involved in helping make that case on an ongoing basis, those are acceptable line items as well. So, okay, so those are a couple of questions I can anticipate, and I'll read through some of these FAQs we've already gotten that will be being updated on the webpage regularly. These are not yet up, but they will be. So I am going to stop sharing my screen because you've all been able to see it. So please be entering your questions right now. I am going to go over these questions and then we'll start launching into all of your additional questions. So I will say one of the questions that we've gotten was, can you schedule an individual meeting to talk about this? We are having just phenomenal responses. And so how we're addressing questions for now is that we have this webinar, I'll be holding office hours, those are all posted on the website, and I'll be responding to emails. So I wanted to be sure that everyone has equal access to be able to get their questions answered. So we're being transparent about opportunities to meet with me. So please use those office hours. Another question, if you're already working with the TA providers listed, can you apply for Trellis Foundation funds to continue that work? So this particular opportunity should, if you're working with someone already, this should be a pilot, an enhancement, or an expansion of that work. This isn't an opportunity to fund existing programming, as that would raise concerns about the sustainability of the initiative if you were going to be using this to supplant existing funds. Another question is, what if you don't know which technical assistance options would be the most helpful for you? Like, you're looking through the list, they look maybe amazing, but you're just not sure. You're early enough in this process that it's unclear. That is fine. That is really part of what the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute can help with. That's the point of the learning community. The cohort lead can help you identify the best options as part of the grant process. So just indicate in the application where you are in the planning process and mention that that particular technical assistance of guidance on technical assistance is some of what you would need in the process. Another question is, maybe your organization, conversely, has a robust implementation plan already and doesn't need the support of any of these technical assistance options. Absolutely a possibility. We understand that these providers will not be the best fit for every organization's current needs. And we congratulate you on that you are in a place where you don't need that assistance. But this grant opportunity may not be a good fit for your organization, because as we mentioned, we are looking for a learning community that can most benefit from the resources that we have available at this time. Other questions, you're a current Trellis Foundation grantee, may you apply for the grant? Yes. Another, can an organization or college system submit more than one application? And for that, organizations may not submit more than one application. IHE systems may submit applications for more than one campus if the campuses are located in different cities. And then a community college district with more than one campus in a region should submit one application by either prioritizing the work at one campus or by submitting a proposal that will benefit the entire system. But the grant amount does not alter with multiple campuses or multiple organizations. It's still a $200,000 maximum grant award. And now I'm going to actually look at the questions that have been coming in.
There's a good one here that I can read out. Will the foundation help create or promote regional collaborations by connecting RFP participants, or should they try to identify the program partners themselves? What would you recommend?
Yes, so if you are looking for mental health service ecosystem support, we are providing that as part of the grant. So our intermediary can help connect you with those. If you're looking for co-applicants, so if you are looking to partner with your local community college, et cetera, you can email us your specific request, but we are not going to have the capacity to help partner every organization in the state on this one. So we are relying on you. If you're co-applying with other entities in your region, you'll need to identify those partners. And then selected grantees who need additional connections at that time that will be being facilitated as part of that ecosystem support. Telehealth, marketing, yes, all of those are things that can be part of the proposal. Again, though, if they're going to be ongoing, you would need to be able to identify how you'll be supporting them post-grant. And then I think I just answered that one, so I think it came in before I got a chance to answer it. On the community college system, you would, well, the question that one was addressed and will be back on the website.
There was one here that came in the chat about does the grant award come with services provided by the technical assistant organizations, or do those services need to be part of the proposal budget? Right. So so no, they don't need to be part of your proposal budget. That would be separate. The foundation is working with those technical assistance providers. So to be super clear, if, for example, like your sample application, if an applicant sees a particular strategy that's part of that technical assistance menu, they don't have to come up with a pricing for that. They just need to describe that in their proposal narrative of that they've identified that as a potential solution or potential intervention that they want to incorporate. Yes, and so you'll see on the application there's a specific question about what technical assistance you would like to receive. And so you would put it in there. So, and again, because this money would go directly to one of those 4 providers that's listed, it wouldn't be pass-through dollars. So anything that where the money would be going to you or would be going to an entity that's not one of those 4 providers, that would need to be in your budget, but we will be directly contracting with Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, the Steve Fund, Jet Foundation, and Active Minds to provide supports that are identified as needed by the grantee cohort. Yes, a 4-year and a 2-year could absolutely partner if they're in the same city. That would be fabulous. And as mentioned in the sample proposal, there may be some differentiation of supports needed, and that's fine. We would hope that there will be some things that cross over, right? Like if there's a workshop that both need, maybe we can partner and do those together. But we do understand there might be some different needs for each institution as well. And we would encourage you to think about your CBOs as well, those nonprofit college access and success providers. So there's no reason, we would encourage the 4-year, the 2-year, and then your college coaching nonprofits in your region as well to all part, because it's the same students, right? And so the way we can provide supports for everyone together would be ideal.
So on the TA, should the technical assistants be included in every grant proposal, and should you connect with them directly? Please do not connect with them directly. We'll be funding that. We'll be selecting the grantee cohort, and then Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute will be providing the coordination for everyone. So they will end up being the lead who's working directly with those technical assistance providers. We also can't guarantee, if you list every single service that they provide, we may not be able to afford every single service for every single organization, right? So they will be going through and braiding together the different supports based on the funding constraints of the foundation. And then I see you had also asked if every provider needed to be included. No, again, there's that section of the proposal where we ask what's a good fit for you. And so if you'll look through that appendix and identify the ones that make sense for where your organization is at this time and include those in the application. And as mentioned, if you're not sure, we can have that can be, once you're selected, we can talk that through. And again, because of funding constraints, if you were to put every single support, we will likely be having to have a conversation with you after you're selected about what are the top priorities, right? So it may not be that everything is included as something we can provide, but we would be working together with the cohort to make sure that we come up with a robust implementation plan for everyone. And again, the experts, Mental Health Policy Institute. I will not personally be figuring that out because I am not an expert. So we understand that and we'll be deferring to our partners.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, just a note of transparency around this, Trellis Foundation has not really worked in this space of mental health and well-being directly before. We've had campuses and organizations that we've partnered with that have included this on their own as part of the way that they look at holistic supports for students. And we've learned a little bit through conversations with those grantees in the past. So we are not claiming a lot of expertise in this area and really are relying heavily on the technical assistance providers. And just also to be transparent about it, this was a point of conversation. This application process is more complex than what we would typically do with the two-step process, and a lot of we're anticipating a lot of back and forth with grantees in conversation about what the intent is and what the opportunities for learning and outcomes are. So you can anticipate some back and forth and some questions and some opportunities to explain anything that we feel like it would be helpful to have more information about. We'll also be getting some input from those technical assistance providers about the proposals that we see in step one before we make that final selection. And we're trying to walk a line between being too prescriptive and dictating the kinds of things that we think are effective, and letting institutions and organizations feel like they are customizing the potential interventions or supports that they think are most effective for the population that they want to serve more effectively. So hopefully we can achieve some of that balance, but that was our intent. So just sort of acknowledging that there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of variables in this process. And as we've all needed in the last couple of years, grace and patience are very much appreciated as we work through all of this. So back to the questions here. In the partnership that's being proposed, do all of the entities need to receive funding through the grant, or is it okay if just the primary applicant is the grant fund recipient?
Right. So as a reminder, if every entity submits an application, you'll be competing against each other and only one can receive the award if you were to apply separately. So if you're applying together, you would have that primary applicant, and then you would need to coordinate on how that shows up in the line items of your budget. So you'd have the up to $200,000 and you'll put together a proposal of the budget. I assume your colleague entities will want some pass-through dollars as part of that. And so y'all will collaborate on what that's going to look like as you're putting together the proposal.
And I think that is the last question that I see. I don't know, Megan, Jenny, have you?
I'm not seeing, I think there was one question that I don't know that we said out loud on this webinar. So is vocational training eligible? So a workforce partner providing vocational training at their own organization would not be eligible. We're working with College Access and Success CBOs and with institutions of higher education. So if, say, a community college has some vocational training as part of its student body, yes. But again, this really is, we absolutely understand the importance of vocational training. This is in no way to minimize or diminish that. Our RFP last year specifically focused on upskilling and reskilling adults. We value all types of training, but this particular RFP is focused on more traditional post-secondary institutions. So we will give one more long pause for any additional questions. And then we'll just remind you that FAQs will be updated regularly on the webpage, so please keep an eye on that landing page. We will be, I'll be available in those office hours that are posted. You all have my email address. This recording will also be being updated on the website. Give us a couple of days to get it finished and uploaded, but we do anticipate by midweek next week that will be up and that the FAQs will be updated. We wanted to wait on that to incorporate questions from today. That RFP document is long, but you are gonna want to use it robustly. That will help with a lot of answering of your questions, and really is key. And that's one reason why the only way to get to the application is to open that RFP document, because it is so key to success in this grant. The prescription support would need to be a mental health support. We're not this isn't a broad health services grant. This is very specifically focused on mental well-being, and that may be something to chat through a little bit more in one of my office hours, so that I can better understand. But it would need to be very, very tightly fit around this mental well-being capacity building at an institution. All right. Well, thank you all again. We appreciate your interest. I look forward to chatting with you all more in those office hours, and we look forward to reading your applications and then working with many of you. So we will go ahead and sign off now. And hope you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and a wonderful evening and weekend. Thank you.